Hello everybody, it's Romania Black, and we are getting down to the final chapters of Volume 3 of Heaven Official's Blessing. I asked Discord, as I said last week, I was wondering how I should read the last several chapters, and I am a little curious, because I asked Discord, I was like, where do you guys think I should read? And they said, oh, well, you should probably read chapters 101 through 104, which is 4 chapters, which that could make this a very long reaction, but I was like, okay, cool. And they're like, oh, and then you can finish up the book with chapters 105 and 106. And I was like, okay. And then I realized something. This ends with chapter 105. So I'm gonna ask Discord again and be like, are you saying I should finish volume 3 next week and then start volume 4? Is that what you're saying? So I'm curious if that's what they meant. If they're like, oh yeah, sure, just read the last chapter, volume 3, and then the first chapter of volume 4. Just do that. I'm fine with that, but I'm curious. I'm fine with ending one book and starting another. But I'm going to check with Discord and make sure that's the case. But they did say 101 through 104 would be a nice chunk to read. And I'm like, awesome. So I'm technically recording this on Valentine's Day, so it's a little bit early for Patreon. Definitely early for YouTube, but it's February, so it's still Valentine's month, right? But yeah, so, and plus it's red, so I figured it's red for Hua Cheng, so, you know. And these last several chapters, despite the body horror, despite the paternity tests, despite all the insanity in between, have been quite romantic. It took us 100 chapters to get there, but we've hit the romantic stride of Heaven Official's Blessing, and I'm hoping it doesn't end. I'm hoping that once the crack in the dam has started, it's just gonna flood from here. Much like the cover of this volume 3, I hope it just floods and we just get romance all around. We'll see, right? We'll see. But I honestly don't have a whole lot of comments going into this. I've read several comments on YouTube, but you all are being very respectful and not spoilery. So I'm like, that makes me wonder what's to come. And I'm really, really excited about that. So the comments I do want to talk about before we start these chapters, though, going back through the Discord, it was talked about, Jun Woo, he has this virginity detecting sword, which I attributed to be like, well, he's the martial emperor. He would need swords of all kinds of manners, just for any special occasion. But Couscous in the Discord was like, so Jun Woo has a virginity kink. And I was like, oh, he does. I was like, oh my gosh, what if he does? That's why he likes Xie Lian so much, because he's a virgin. I'm like, ah. Well, Xie Lian may not be in his favor for long then. No, if Xie Lian and Hua Cheng do the deed in any way, shape, or form, it's going to be like way down the line, I feel. I don't know. I know volume 4 has them like making out, but that's making out. That's a totally different thing. And we don't even know the context of that, right? The context of this cover is quite different than the context of the actual content itself. So it's hard to gauge what that cover is going to mean. And I like that. I like that the cover is not all telling. It's just connected. So who knows, right? And that cover may be a dream. We don't know. So yeah, there is that. Well, you all that read have known, but I don't know. But yeah, I thought that was cool. The Jun Woo with virginity kink. I will say this, Jun Woo and Pei Ming, I still have reservations about each of their characters, but Pei Ming is becoming more of a goofball. I'm liking that. I'm happy with that. A womanizer that's a goofball I can deal with. Xie Wudu, on the other hand, I'm still like, I don't know about you. You seem like a bro, and I'm not sure I'm on board with you. But Jun Woo, I kind of understand. He's got a big, hard job. I'm starting to warm up to his character just a wee bit. But I will say, Anime Annie pointed out that Jun Woo kind of shows his humanity with that whole, where he's like slips up with the hand, which kind of made me think, yeah, he was a person, a human, at one time. How do you get to that position? So I'm curious about his character. I don't want to know. I want to find out as we read, but he's on my radar. Jun Woo is officially on my radar, so I'm pretty excited about that. The collar of this turtleneck is also I need to stretch it out, so if I'm doing this throughout, I just got the sweater in the mail, and I'm like, I need to stretch it. So yeah, that's where you're at. But also, SQQLBH 314 talked about when Xie Lian went back to the Pucci shrine and walked in, there was a note by MXTX that was like, everything was fine. The trash was taken out. Qi Rong was gone. like confirming Qi Rong is garbage. That literally has been taken out back, like we do. I'm excited to see where Qi Rong is in these chapters if we find out, and to see if if Hua Cheng shows up because Ming is there, and if he questions about Qi Rong, like, I'm curious. And also, now that we have this virginity detecting sword, I'm like curious of what else is in Junwoo's armory that we don't know about. Maybe we'll find out, right? But I did want to say before we started, I went back and looked at my discussion about who is the daddy of Lan Chong's child. I was really adamant about Qi Rong being the dad, but the more I thought about it, the more that there's like this extra option that comes into play, because I was all about like, oh yeah, Qi Rong could be the dad. He could just take the golden belt from Xie Lian. But then I was thinking about it afterwards, like, how does Qi Rong couldn't see Xie Lian while he was in his deity form. So how could he have stolen the belt? Right? So that kind of deflated my theory a little bit. I was thinking about it going, well, he couldn't have gotten the belt from Xie Lian. He couldn't see them. So maybe that's not the case. This other option that's popped up in my mind the last few days has been that, you know, if Xie Lian pawned off the golden belts for money, then there's no telling who could have gotten it. But there's still the fact that Mu Qing seems to know who it is, or knows Long Chan enough that he is trying to protect her somehow. Either he's the dad or he knows who the dad is. That's what I've narrowed it down to. Either Mu Qing is the father, but Xie Lian doesn't think that that's the case, or Mu Qing knows who the father is, and he's just trying not to say anything because it'll either hurt Xie Lian, or it'll hurt Lan Chong, it'll hurt himself. For some reason, Mu Qing does not want to bring it up, and functions kind of suspicious of him. So that's going to be one of the great mysteries of the story, is who is the father of this fetus spirit. I don't know, right? Maybe it's Bai Wusheng. It's like, stop, you know, Bai, not the father. So I just imagine Bai Wusheng is just a valley girl gone wrong. A valley girl, like, that is also in a horror cult. So there we are. But yeah, those are my comments. So not too much going into this set of chapters. I'm really excited though, because Xie Lian is like treating Iming like a little dog, and I'm really hoping that Hua Cheng shows up, because I'm spoiled now. I've had all these chapters of Hua Cheng and Xie Lian in the present together. If they could just do like Wei Wuxian and Lan Wangji and just team up for the rest of the books and solve mysteries together, I'd be a happy girl. But I feel like it's not going to be that easy, especially when we have so much story left. We're only to volume 4 almost, and that's not even halfway through this series. So yeah, we got a long way to go, but it's okay. We can do it. But with that being said, I'm excited. We're going to read chapters 101 to 104 and see what all we get, and just go from there. So we're going to start Heaven Official's Blessing at chapters 100 to 104, and we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. Chapter 101, The Fight for Commendation. Ming battles Rui. What? Come on. Okay. Are we having a dog fight here in the Buchi Shrine? Okay. Xie Lian gently stroked down the spine of the blade. Oh, Xie Lian, if that sword is connected to Hua Cheng, I didn't see it was you. I won't do it again. After stroking it a few times, Xie Lian, you gotta quit stroking swords. You gotta quit stroking swords, Xie Lian. Do you realize what you're doing? It squinted its eye and its trembling stopped. Oh, that's the thing. He's just gotta stroke that sword a few times and he'll stop trembling. MXTX, why? Oh, where's your master? Pay it no mind. He's like, I gotta adjust myself. We're fine. Oh, surprised and delighted. Sun Long, why have you come? Oh, he was surprised and delighted to see him. Oh, ooh. Oh, behind him was the youth. Oh, it was Hua Cheng. But does he look like Sun Long? He had tied his hair back into a crooked ponytail, dressed in a white tunic with his red outer robe tied around his waist, sleeves rolled up, revealing those pale white but firm arms, and as well as the tattoo on one of them. As he walked, the little silver bells of his boots chimed, sounding quite mellow. Xie Lian, you're fooling nobody. You're into this so much. He looked like a strapping young lad of the village, but exceedingly carefree. A piece of weed grass hung from his lips as he smiled at Xie Lian. Gege. He's back in San Long mode. Okay. Oh, Xie Lian had originally planned to visit him to give him proper thanks after selling the 2 children. After he'd be like, kids, gotta go thank your dad. Hold on. But he showed up instead. Oh, he pulled out that silver scimitar from the ground with just one hand, looked it over, and then lifted it to rest on his shoulder. Gege's busy here, so there's no need to trouble you to make the trip over, so I came myself. You almost forgot this. Oh, the bamboo hat. He forgot it at the mansion of the wealthy merchant. Oh, not at the Paradise Manor. It was at the wealthy merchant's place, so Hua Cheng's been there too. Huh. Thank you for going for the trouble. He remembered what he told Hua Cheng after that something that had happened. I'm looking for my bamboo hat. My bamboo hat is missing. Oh, he went and found it for him. He was afraid Hua Cheng was going to tease him for it, but he didn't even mention the incident and changed the subject with a smile. Gege picked up 2 more kids. I love that Hua Cheng's like, oh, getting more children, huh? Just can't be the 2 of us, huh? Oh my gosh. Oh, he patted Guzi's head, ruffling his hair into a mess. Guzi seemed to be scared of him. Oh, don't worry, this Gege is a good person. Nah, I'm a very bad person. Oh, we're gonna get into this. Okay. Although that was what he said, he still flicked his hand and a tiny silver butterfly was flipped out of his sleeve, fluttering its little wings, flying errantly towards Guzi. His inky eyes bulged. He stared at the tiny silver butterfly with an unmoving gaze, and he reached out and tried to catch it in spite of himself. With that, his guard against Hua Cheng was greatly dropped. He swept his eyes over Long Ying, but his gaze was significantly different. When he looked at Long Ying, his eyes were cold and sharp, unkind and unfriendly. Oh! Long Ying lowered his head and also shrank back behind Xie Lian anxiously. What a difference that makes! Interesting! He held the bamboo. If you're going to come, just come. What are you doing cleaning the Pucci shrine? Oh, it's just some house cleaning. Don't you think everyone feels so much more refreshing now that all the trash is cleared out? Oh, man. What are all these questions? Oh, did Hua Cheng actually throw him out like he was garbage? God, I wanted to... Just then there was a wail from behind the shrine. Hua Cheng, you fucker! Go to hell and get boiled in a pot of frying oil! Murder! Hua Cheng is committing ghost murder! Ghost murder! Dad! Oh no! Oh gosh. There was a small creek behind the Pucci shrine. It was where he usually did the laundry and washed the rice. At that moment, Qi Rong was being dunked in the water, his body bound tightly by Rui. He was desperately trying to keep his head above water. Oh my god, it's like water torture. Roaring with all his might, I won't get out. I refuse to get out. I'll stay in this body until it dies. I won't surrender. You take yourself for some kind of hero, useless trash. I captured him a few days ago in the mountain. He's possessing someone else and won't come out. The man is still alive, so if we forcibly rip out the soul, the flesh won't survive. Does San Long have any idea what we can do? Oh, you want ideas on how to make him suffer a fate worse than death? Well, there's plenty. That was a threat. And Qi Rong cussed, the 2 of you, broken pot matching a rotten cover, hearts of snakes and scorpions. Oh my gosh. Oh, he was submerged in the creek again. He remembered how his mother's corpse was dissolved into ashes and would be filled with anguish. That body belonged to another, so it must be conserved. Thus he fished up Qi Rong from the creek and dragged him to the front door of the Pucci shrine. Qi Rong hadn't eaten for a full day and night, so his stomach was shriveled from hunger. After having been bullied by Hua Cheng, he was full of rage but no energy. He wolfed down the meat pie as Guzi snuck back from that wealthy merchant's house, leaving not a single crumb, appearing truly wretched and pathetic. Xie Lian shook his head. He noticed that Qi Rong's limbs were stiff, probably some petrification spell cast by Hua Cheng. Rui returned. Rui had spent days binding Qi Rong, and he was already feeling extremely aggrieved. With the call, it immediately whooshed over and wrapped itself in loops around Xie Lian's whole body like a white snake. Xie Lian pushed the door open and comforted it as he did, untying it from his person. All right, I'll give you a bath in a bit. Don't feel bad. Go play on the side. What? Like they're dogs, right? Rui dragged its bandages and dejectedly floated to the side. Hua Cheng casually tossed Ming, and Ming itself assumed a dignified pose upon landing. On the wall, Rui suddenly discovered a silver shimmering scimitar leaning next to it, and very carefully approached. Oh my god, this is adorable. The eye on the hilt of the scimitar Ming also twirled and looked over, its gaze calculating. Feng Xin somberly did not move. Like these inanimate objects! It is like Beauty and the Beast. What? Making no show of acknowledging anything. Xie Lian had been spending these past days studying up on cooking, and he felt he might have gained quite the insight, his heart full of confidence. When he show off his skills and host Hua Cheng properly, oh my gosh, he kept him for a meal. Naturally, Hua Cheng agreed to it cheerfully. When they returned from town, Xie Lian had bought a bunch of groceries, and he piled them up all on the altar. Picking up a butcher knife, he chopped and sliced, clinking and clanking the pots. That altar table could be used as a desk, a kitchen island, and also a dining table. Cutlery could be set. Kids could sit all around. Truly a table of 100 uses. Hua Cheng leaned against the wall and watched for a bit. Finally, he couldn't watch anymore. And he spoke up, "Do you need help?" "Oh, no need. Just Ruyi's help is plenty." Then he threw out a few bundles of firewood that hadn't yet been chopped. Pah! Like an attacking viper, that white silk bandage whipped the logs, and chunks of wood that were thick as thighs were instantly chopped into thin slices of kindling. Having shown off its skills, Ruyi arched into an exaggerated, odd form in front of Ming and Feng Xin, as if demonstrating its strength and beauty. The demonstration of beauty didn't last long. Xie Lian moved again and placed a plate on the ground before throwing over a big cabbage. Ruyi was about to strike when suddenly Ming's eyes flashed. Oh my god! It flew off the ground, whirling out shimmers of silver light. Leaves of cabbage filled the air, and as they landed on the plate, they'd already been thinly and cleanly chopped. Xie Lian squatted down to pick up the plate and praised when he saw the cabbage. "Oh, amazing! You cut better than Ruyi!" Instantly, Ruyi pressed itself against the wall, looking like someone backing away and having nowhere left to run. Ming, however, started twirling its eye crazily, appearing fully cocky and content, like it had reached a state of sainthood. What is happening, MXTX? Between the saber and the bandage, Feng Xin still remained unmoved. Xie Lian hadn't noticed the little battle between the spiritual devices at all, and was focused on throwing all sorts of different veggies and seasonings into the pot. "By the way, how long are you planning to stay this time, Sun Long?" Hua Cheng had been watching his actions the entire time, and he looked like he wanted to advise him of something at first, but in the end he said nothing. "Depends. If there's nothing going on over there, I'll stick around here and play for a few days. If I hang around, pray Gege won't mind." "Why would I? As long as you don't mind my place being a bit cramped." "Oh, shut up!" Oh. Xie Lian told Hua Cheng all about the female ghost that was throwing blame, causing trouble the moment she arrived at the Great Martial Hall. Of course, he refrained from mentioning how he himself was accused. Okay. And the whole business with dripping blood on Yanzhen. Okay, he didn't tell him that. Then again, he remembered Junwu saying Hua Cheng had planted a spy in the Heavenly Realm. So maybe Hua Cheng already knew everything. Fortunately, whether he knew or not, he made no show of it, and he only looked contemplative. "Sun Long, who do you think the father of the fetus spirit is?" It's hard to say. Maybe that golden belt really was just something she picked up off the ground. A vague response like this wasn't at all Hua Cheng's usual style, and Xie Lian was puzzled. But soon a bubbling pot robbed away his focus. After 2 instants' time, he opened the covered pot. Usually, all Qi Rong ate were offerings to Xie Lian from the village people, although it was nothing. Oh my god, is he going to give him the soup and that's going to make him turn? Oh my god, please! Although it was nothing more than seam buns and pickles, noodles, and eggs, wild fruits, and other such things, at least it was food fit for humans. The moment the pot cover opened and the smell of its contents wafted outside, he started cussing deafeningly. "Oh, effing Xie Lian! Black-hearted snow lotus! You might as well just kill me with the blade right now! Acting all good, fishing me out was to make me suffer this torture. I've seen through you!" Before opening the pot cover, Xie Lian was full of confidence. Now he started to doubt himself again. He had tried his best and exerted so much effort, but it resulted in such an entree. Hua Cheng was still watching. Whatever should he do? Was he really going to make Hua Cheng eat something like this? Listening to Qi Rong screaming bloody murder, Xie Lian was becoming even more demoralized. Sensing Hua Cheng had crossed his arms and was about to go out, Xie Lian raised his hand to stop him. "Oh, never mind him." He sighed, filling a bowl with the substance from the pot, and said to Hua Cheng, "Don't eat anything from this pot. Just wait for me for a second." Then he went out. He ushered Guzi and Long Ying to go get a bucket of water, sending him away from the premises. He squatted down with the bowl, looking pleasant and airy. "Little cousin, it's time to eat." "Oh no! What are you doing? What are you planning? Xie Lian, I'm warning you. I have a life in my hands. You better think this through. Whoever the hell can eat that shit will break free from the bondage of 3 realms. Flee the Dharma wheel. No one. He trailed off when he saw Hua Cheng, who was inside the shrine, ladle himself a full bowl. He sat down next to the altar table and took a bite, his face unchanging, steady like the mountains. Qi Rong was shaken to the core. A thought he had never had before flashed through his mind, as expected of a supreme. Oh, it's fine if you don't want to eat it, if you come out. That was never going to happen. Qi Rong clamped his teeth tightly. However, Xie Lian squeezed his cheeks and forced his mouth open, dumping the contents of the bowl straight down his throat. The next second, a sharp scream shot through the skies above the Puchi shrine. The bowl in Xie Lian's hand sat empty. Qi Rong was on the ground, bore a twisted, scrunched-up face. Even his voice was hoarse, like an old man wasted away. I hate. Seeing that even with a full bowl forced down his throat, Qi Rong refused to come out, Xie Lian didn't know whether to be glad or anguished. Although he really wanted to force Qi Rong out as soon as possible, since he didn't succeed, it almost seemed like it proved what he had cooked with all of his heart wasn't that bad after all. Perhaps it was even something worth being happy about. Turning around, he saw Hua Cheng also had a bowl in his hands. He was eating leisurely, looking his way as he ate. That bowl was almost empty. Xie Lian's eyes lit up and he rose to feet. Oh, so long have you finished? He thought he flopped the meal at first and was too embarrassed to offer it to Hua Cheng. But who knew Hua Cheng himself went and started eating? Hua Cheng chuckled, yeah. Ah, the 6 samsara realms, the Buddhist beliefs in the 6 realms of existence, heaven, Ajra, human, animal, hungry, ghost, and hell. Accumulated karma of previous lifetimes determine which realm the individual is born into. What did you think? Not bad. A little thick. Try making it a little lighter next time. All right, I'll remember that. Thanks for your feedback. Oh no! Qi Rong! Oh my god. Y'all. Chapter 102, Sage Stew of the Crown Prince to welcome unexpected guests. At first, Xie Lian had planned to show off his culinary skills. However, after tonight, his confidence plunged by a millionfold. Hua Cheng had suggested that he could make dinner instead. But how could Xie Lian have the face to ask him to cook after Hua Cheng fixed his door and cleaned his shrine too? Who in their right mind would treat their guests this way? Besides, who did he take an esteemed supreme ghost for? Fortunately, he brought plenty of supplies back from town. Although a large portion of it went into Xie Lian's pot, there were still some buns and pies and veggies and fruits left. So they munched on what they had, but after munching, what then? What then indeed? The next day, the problem was solved on its own. Bright and early in the morning, the door of the Puchi shrine opened to the knocking of a bunch of village girls who had come to offer large pots of porridge and a roasted chicken. The village girls were shy and anxious, so who they came for was quite obvious. Xie Lian couldn't help but sigh in awe to himself, thinking beauty really could fill a stomach. The roasted chicken was divided between the 2 children. Xie Lian only had some porridge, and Hua Cheng didn't touch anything. He smiled. Gege is really popular in this area. Oh, don't tease me so long. They were obviously drunk, but not on wine. After that bowl went down, Qi Rong was bound outside the shrine for an entire night, howling and screeching, yelling things along the lines of, I'd rather be captured by Long Chan Chu, be butchered to 1,000,000 pieces, than to be stuck here and fed poison by you. Cousin Crown Prince, I'm wrong. Please, I beg you, give me the antidote. He even started hallucinating and became delusional. Little Guzi was horrified. By early morning, Qi Rong was shriveled up and sucked dry, his face completely green. He lapped at the porridge Guzi held in his hand before finally regaining some strength. He croaked with a broken voice. Bullshit. Popular? Who the hell would come for him? Look at that shabby appearance. Also, don't be so full of yourself. Hua Cheng, you effer! You can only attract some country chicks from remote places like these at the most. They only came clinging because you dressed so extravagantly. If you dressed the part of a beggar, I doubt they'd even look at you. Xie Lian thought it wasn't right at all. Even if Hua Cheng dressed like a beggar, Xie Lian believed, should he go begging, he would collect a mountain of gold. Still, he said nothing and started doing chores leisurely. After a while, another wave of smells wafted outside, and Qi Rong roared again. What are you doing now? What the hell? Xie Lian replied warmly, that pot of love for all seasons stew. They're heating up! What a good name! Oh, then Hua Cheng's like, what a good name. You gave that effing thing a name? Stop! Love for all seasons. Oh God. Yes, please. Just the smell from eating it up reminds Qi Rong of his terrifying memories. After that, Xie Lian would really feed that to him again. He didn't dare speak more. After finishing the meal, Long Ying silently collected the cutlery as if he was going to do the dishes. Oh, let it be. Just go play. I'll take care of this. Maybe he wasn't allowed to cook, but he could still do the dishes. Hua Cheng watched Long Ying take Guzi out to play and said, let me do them. Oh, there's even less reason for you to do them. Just sit. Before he finished speaking, they heard Qi Rong, who had been bored with nothing to do after having filled his stomach, making cat calls. Hey, Chickie, what are you doing checking me out? Did I make your little tender heart quiver? Ew, with a greasy tone. That ghost had just been griping about how he didn't care for country girls. But then he turned around and started flirting, so tastelessly too. Xie Lian shook his head, thinking he'd best drag Qi Rong out after all, lest he scare people while stuck outside. Unexpectedly, before he even opened the door, the voices of all from the villagers rang out. Oh, legendary beauty! Why would such beautiful ladies come to our village? I've never seen such pretty ladies in my life, at least two, and there's two of them. Soon after, there was a series of knocks, and Xie Lian was puzzled. Legendary beauty? Two of them? Why would two legendary beauties come knocking on my door? Oh, is it the Windmaster and the Earthmaster? Could it be? Did the wealthy merchant bring his new wives to come return their gratitude? No, I don't think that's it. Thinking this could very well be the case, Xie Lian hurried and grabbed for the please donate to help with renovations to the shrine sign, ready to set it outside. But then he heard the frosty voice of one woman. What's this thing at the door? Burn the eyes. And then immediately the voice of another woman came, sounding puzzled. Maybe it's for guarding the door. No way, there's no reason to sink so low as to use such a vulgar spiritual beast. Yes! Although they were female voices, he could hear them before. It was the Windmaster and the Earthmaster! Oh, with Hua Cheng here. Oh, ooh, okay. At first he wanted to open the door immediately, but then he whipped his head around. He looked at the Hua Cheng behind him, who was lazily cleaning up the altar table. Xie Lian stopped his hands, cautiously peeking out the door through the crack instead. Outside the door, two slender and delicate women, one dressed in a white cultivation robes, her lips rosy, her form charming and sensual, with a whisk in her hand and her eyes bright. The other was a black-clad woman, skin as white as snow, brows beautiful and sharp, yet her expression was dark, looking away into the distance, with her hands clenched in fists. The white-robed woman cultivator had a face full of smiles, waving her arms, hands all around. Thanks, everyone. Thank you. No need to compliment so much. No need to make such a show. I'm very troubled with you all like this. That's enough for now. Thank you. All around was a large, tightly knit crowd of beauty-watching villagers. Having seen the beauties, they started pointing and bashing Qi Rong. Qi Rong was displeased and yelled madly, "What are all you looking at? So what if his ancestor likes lying on the ground? F off! There's nothing here to see!" The villagers saw how freakily the man behaved, looking maliciously violent with a green face, and dispersed in fright. Oh, the Windmaster turned to Qi Rong. "This green young master, pray tell, is His Highness the Crown Prince inside the shrine?" Oh. Hearing the woman address Xie Lian as His Highness the Crown Prince, Qi Rong immediately lost interest in the two beautiful women before him. He clicked his tongue. Yeah, so you're the shitty officials from the upper heavens. As if this ancestor is a dog guarding his door. Listen here, I am. Before he hadn't finished before Ming Yi glumly approached, and there was a wail followed by sounds of smacking. From Xie Lian's position, he couldn't see what Ming Yi was doing, but he could only see the Windmaster sweep her whisk, chiding, Ming Zhang, it's not good to use violence. What's there to be afraid of? Didn't he say he's not a domesticated spiritual beast? To prevent Qi Rong from getting beaten to death, Xie Lian had no choice but to open the door. Oh, my lord, have mercy. Don't hit him. He's a person. Seeing that Xie Lian opened the door, Ming Yi flipped away her black kim and removed her boot from Qi Rong's back. Shi Qingshan rushed up and clutched her hands in a curtsy gesture. Oh, your highness, I've come a few days early. What's with that person? He's so full of demonic essence you can't hide it. Do you take us for blind? We'll talk inside. This time I've really something important I need your help with. As she spoke, she walked around Qi Rong, who was lying on the ground, and crossed over the threshold. Hua Cheng was still inside, so how could Xie Lian dare let them in? Wait! It was too late. The Puchi shrine was only so big, it had no places to hide. Immediately, the two saw that behind Xie Lian's person there stood a supreme ghost king, who was in the middle of doing dishes. The four pair of eyes met, and sparks flew. Hua Cheng smiled a smile that showed his teeth. The smile was ominous, and his eyes had no trace of mirth. In an instant, Ming Yi's pupils shrank and she backed away 3 feet. The Windmaster flung out her Windmaster fan, striking an attacking stance, exceedingly alarmed. The crimson rain sought flower. Outside the door, the ashen-faced Qi Rong roared with rage. And I'm the Night-Torn Green Lantern! How come none of you recognized me when beating me, but knew it was him with just one look? Ming Yi had once infiltrated the Ghost City and had spent many years as a spy under Hua Cheng. It was only recently that she had been discovered and captured by Hua Cheng, then locked in a maze dungeon and beaten. To have enemies face each other, their eyes bloodshot, tiny little Pucci shrine was filled with a scent of venom inside and out. Hua Cheng tossed a rag in his hand and smirked. The Lord Earthmaster looks lively. The Lord Ghost King also looks leisurely as usual, and as always. After having made false perfunctory greetings, the next words that came out of Hua Cheng's mouth were even colder, his expression icy. Leave. I don't care what important business you have. Do not come anywhere near here again. Although she feared Hua Cheng, she still refused to back down meekly. Ming Yi responded with a solemn voice. To come here was not my will. The venom was going to turn explosive. Next to them, Xie Lian was growing nervous. Lord Windmaster, what should we do? The Windmaster knocked her fan on her head a few times and said, I didn't expect the Crimson Rainsop flower would be here. Didn't you guys just meet recently? How come you're together again so fast? Anyway, if this can't be solved without fists, that'd be good. Violence is bad. If they start fighting, we'll have to hold them back. I agree, mostly. Qi Rong was hoping the two would start brawling and had been listening intently. Just then, he suddenly spoke. Oh, so you're that slutty woman, the Windmaster? Both Xie Lian and Xi Qingcheng turned to look at him. That was exactly how Qi Rong had called the Windmaster when he was in his own cave. But even before the person herself, he dared curse her like this. Xie Lian couldn't tell if it was out of bravery or a lack of mental capacity. The Windmaster had always been raised in a dignified grace, so this is probably the first time hearing someone curse her this way. She blinked, looking confused, and turned to Xie Lian. Your Highness, please wait. Then she exited the shrine and closed the door. Outside, there was another desperate wail from Qi Rong and another bout of smacking noises. A moment later, the Windmaster opened the door to come back in and had returned to his male form. All right, so where were we? I'm feeling kind of hungry too, so how about we all sit down and eat something? There's nothing to be negotiated, nothing that can't be solved at the dinner table. Xie Lian didn't want them to start fighting inside the Pucci shrine, but Hua Cheng seemed to be extremely angry over the whole affair of Ming Yi's infiltration. Without knowing the inside story, it seemed rather impossible to have them sit down and eat agreeably. However, Hua Cheng actually didn't seem to object to the idea. After a frosty moment, the ice on his face cleared away, and he turned back to continue doing dishes. After he was done, he walked to the pot and ladled a full bowl of the love-for-all-season stew. Seeing that he had backed down first and ceased the battle, the others all sighed a breath of relief. The next step was to change the subject and liven up the atmosphere. So the Windmaster asked, Your Highness, what's in the pot? It still seems to be hot. Oh, I made that, Xie Lian said. The pot had been stewing for a long time. The flavors were completely soaked in, and most of the smell had already been dissipated. Although the color was still questionable, the shapes had all been but melted away from the stewing, and it looked much better than it had the night before. Hearing his response, the Windmaster was vibrating with excitement. Oh, really? I've never eaten anything made by the hands of the heavenly officials. Come, let's have a taste. He grabbed 2 sets of cutlery and 2 filled bowls. To be honest, Xie Lian had wanted to stop him at first. However, Hua Cheng had been so firmly encouraging, bearing seeds of confidence within him. Plus, earlier that morning, he had also changed up the seasoning according to Hua Cheng's suggestions as he heated the stew. So the thought of, maybe I saved it, surfaced in his mind. After some hesitation, he didn't say anything. He secretly watched with hope as the Windmaster passed one of the bowls to Ming Yi. Come on, Mingxiang, this one's yours. Ming Yi took a look at the contents of the bowl. She turned her face away, looking unwillingly. It was a rude gesture. The Windmaster was outraged and forced the bowl into her unrelenting. Hey, didn't you say you were hungry earlier on the road? Hua Cheng lazily raised a spoonful and blew on it. He brought it to his lips and then swallowed. He smiled at Xie Lian. It's delightfully lighter today. The flavor's just right. Xie Lian smiled too. Really? I added more water today. Hua Cheng took another bite and smiled happily. Gege did his best. With Hua Cheng behaving as though he was tasting some delicious delicacy, it was exceedingly convincing. A moment later, Ming Yi took the bowl after all, and the Windmaster smiled. That's better. And the two spooned a mouthful at the same time, taking a bite. Oh, I'm glad I'm not stopping. No. Oh my god, this is madness. Absolute madness. Oh my god. Chapter 103, the venerable of empty words, mourning at the feast. How is it? Xie Lian asked. Thud! Ming Yi collapsed on the altar table face down as if she'd lost consciousness. Next to her, 2 lines of tears streamed down Xi Qingshang's face. My lords, how is it exactly? Will you pull yourselves together and give me some constructive criticism using words? The Windmaster snapped out of it. He wiped at his face. Oh, it's back to a he, soaking with tears and clutched Xie Lian's hands, pressing down with force. Your Highness. What? Was tongue-tied, unable to speak. He sobbed as he pushed Ming Yi. Ming-Shang, what's wrong? Pull yourself together, wake up! Ming Yi laid on the table unmoving. The Windmaster could never stand for anyone ignoring him, and push became shove until finally he was strangling the other, shaking with force. Xie Lian couldn't watch anymore, and suggested anxiously, Lord Windmaster, why don't you just put down the broom and we can talk things out? Oh, he was strangling at the broom. Oh, Your Highness, what'd you say? I can't hear you. Xie Lian, Lord Windmaster, the thing in your hands is not the Lord Earthmaster. The Lord Earthmaster is here. Oh my god, they're hallucinating. The food's so bad. Oh, Ming Yi sat up bolt right. He returned to his male form in a flash. His face was as dark as steel. His eyes bore down and Xie Lian oppressively. Evil has overtaken my heart. Exorcise it for me. A spoonful of stew could produce evil in the heart? Xie Lian was shocked to the core. That can't be possible. Of course Hua Cheng wouldn't be affected. Lord Xi Qingshang, however, was pointing at Ming Yi, his eyes round and bulging. Hold it, you! What manner of evil are you? To dare show your petty tricks before this Windmaster. Where's Ming Shang? Quick, I'll shield you. Let's take it down together. With the broom in one hand, the other flung out the Windmaster fan. If that fan were to attack, then the entire rooftop would be blown away for sure. Xie Lian hastily rushed up to hold him. No! My lords, please, will you both snap out of it? Qi Rong was slamming his fist to the ground, laughing outside, yelling, Y'all deserved it, effing officials! Go die and ascend! This is effing great! I feel so much better! The 2 officials were falling all over themselves, groaning nonstop. Hua Cheng leaned against the wall with his arms crossed. Xie Lian looked at him and then looked at the Windmaster and the Earthmaster, clutching their heads on the ground. He whispered, Is it maybe because I didn't add enough water after all? Why would their reactions be stronger than Qi Rong's? Hua Cheng raised his brows. I think it's fine. It's probably a problem with their taste buds. It happens. Of course, his stew wouldn't affect a supreme ghost because they're already dead. Xie Lian, however, had never thought about what Qi Rong typically ate and what the heavenly officials usually ate. Comparing the two, heavenly officials were much more sensitive and emotionally delicate, so that was probably why their reactions were much stronger. Of course, he also didn't think about whether anything had been added after the pot had passed through Hua Cheng's hands. Feeling both depressed and guilty, Xie Lian fed 7 or 8 bowls of water each to Xi Qingshang and Ming Yi before the 2 slowly came around. Although their faces were green as Qi Rong and their eyes dead, at least they were conscious. Their speech is returning. The only lingering problem was the unstoppable tears streaming down the Windmaster's face. And when he spoke, he accidentally bit his tongue at times. Other than that, there weren't any real issues. After all that ruckus, 2 hours later, the 4 finally sat down orderly around the altar table. Ming Yi still had his face down on the altar, still as a corpse. Xie Lian righted his expression and inquired solemnly, Lord Windmaster, you said there was something important you wanted my help with earlier. What is it exactly? Looking wan and sallow, Xi Qingshang threw a soundproof spell on the door, making sure no one outside could hear anything. He croaked with a hoarse voice. It's like this. Your Highness, you've been hiding in the world, cultivating in the mortal realm for 800 years. You've walked and seen much, so you must have bumped into plenty of ghosts and monsters, right? I've met some. Then I want to ask, have you ever met a venerable of empty words? A venerable of empty words who mourn at feasts? That's right. Oh, at the same time, there seemed to be someone next to his ear giggling coldly, a humming and exceedingly creepy tone. Somehow the sunlight that shone through the windows and cracks warming the little Poochie shrine had also dimmed, and the whole place was enveloped in a large shadow. His extremities were getting cold or icy like steel. He had to clutch his ropes tight. He felt as if he must be brought up directly, and spoke up, I have to ask who's laughing, who's singing, who's blowing cold air behind my back, who made the shrine dark? Oh, that's all me. It's just a little spell. Don't mind me. It's creating the mood. Oh my god, really? A moment later, Xie Lian sported his temple and said exasperatingly, Windmaster, how about we stop with the breeze? What's with this weather? None of us are dressed in layers. The mood was already there, but it dissipated when you added the cold breeze and music. Oh, really? Oh my god. I think it'd be better if the shrine remains dark. Let me light this candle. The ambiance will be much better. As he spoke, he really did take out a candle and lit it. The flickering candlelight illuminated the 2 snow-white faces and the 2 other pale greenish faces. The mood was actually quite strong. The haunting atmosphere exceptional, and perhaps even Qi Rong still outside would howl and scream in fright of ghosts. The other 3 didn't want to say anything more. Hua Cheng leaned back, and Ming Yi remained as a corpse. Xie Lian rubbed his forehead and said, okay, let's continue. Where were we? The venerable of empty words. Why didn't you just say the jinx monster? Calling it the venerable of empty words, it took me a minute to realize who you were talking about. The venerable of empty words, although given the title venerable, people only addressed it as venerable for show. It was giving it some face. People were afraid of it. Were afraid that if its name was too unseemly and it found out, it'd come after you. In truth, everyone wished they could curse it as the foul-mouthed venerable, the jinx monster. The worse it sounded, the better. It really was an abominable to the extreme. That's right. Typical demons and monsters were at worst scary, but this one was abominable. This was because if someone should be happy, in their moment of joy, it would appear and dunk a bucket of cold water over their heads, a real killjoy. Consider for a moment, if at the reception of a pair of newlyweds, a creature of this sort appeared, ate up the feast, and then suddenly claimed, it won't take long for the 2 of you to break up. Or in another case, if an old master of a household was promoted in office, it would appear and cry in the midst of the congratulations, you're going to get cuffed and go to jail in a few years. If it should attach itself to someone, it would become like a shadow and firmly wrap itself onto that person, endlessly cussing for the opposite whenever a joyous occasion should occur. Truly abominable, especially for those who feared ominous signs. If they ran into that thing, they'd die from distress. No one wanted a monster like that haunting them. But if they bumped into it, they could only accept their fate. After all, there was still no one who knew just how it selected prey. It seemed the Windmaster was still quite fearful of that creature, but Xie Lian didn't think it to be a big deal. Oh, don't worry, it's nothing to be scared of. To say it more precisely, that creature was more likely to be scared of him. The Windmaster became energetic. So your Highness has met one. Is there any way to exterminate that thing completely? Humming for a moment, Xie Lian replied, I did bump into 2 many years ago, but they've never shown themselves again. I don't know for sure whether they were completely exterminated, but from my experience, it's not that difficult to deal with them. 2? You managed to deal with 2? I've never come to the right place, so what happened? 2 items of misfortune like jinx monsters. My mind instantly goes to like Rui and Ming since we just had them fighting over each other, but that's probably not it. Like if you put their spirit into an object. But I don't know. I don't think that's it. No, that's my mind pops into that. Oh, he began his tale. The first one was like this. Many years ago, Xie Lian passed through a small town, and there was a wealthy merchant sending his daughter off to the capital to study. Because of how outstanding his daughter was, he made a big show of publicly commending her, a joyous occasion. Who knew that from joy brewed tragedy? At the send-off feast, there was suddenly a voice that belted, your daughter's carriage will overturn on the road and she'll die crashing down into the valley. That wealthy merchant jumped to his feet in rage on the spot, setting on catching the one who had said those words, but that person ducked under the table right after and disappeared into thin air. After that, everyone was scared. Fortunately, Xie Lian went to that household the day to collect junk. He managed to obtain some leftovers and was about to head back when he heard what had happened. He knew what that creature was, and so he told the wealthy merchant not to worry. He asked the wealthy merchant to hire some 20 guards, and with Xie Lian himself included, they carefully escorted the little lady to the capital safely and protected her for a while. A month later, the little lady won first in a beauty contest, and the chance had come. That night, a feast was held at a restaurant in the capital to celebrate the young lady. Sure enough, there was a voice from the crowd again, belting, "You'll be!" The moment Xie Lian heard its voice, he seized that creature from the crowd, choking its neck, stopping it from uttering another word. Then, immediately using a charm to seal its body, and beat it to a bloody pulp. He then ordered for a carriage, taking it to the valleys to run wildly astray. At a winding corner of the mountain pass, the rain snaps and the carriage crashed down the cliffs, fulfilling its own curse to others. That's it? That's it. To deal with the jinx, all right, the venerable of empty words. To deal with the venerable of empty words, there are 3 methods. First, don't let it open its mouth and cut it off before it can speak. This can help guard you for the moment, but it won't protect you for life, so you have to be constantly vigilant. Second, if it should speak, don't let the subject of its curse hear it. Anyone would be scared if they should hear a curse against them whilst at the height of their joy, and that creature feeds on that fear. It revels in it. The more scared you are, the happier it becomes. If you should lose yourself from terror and ruin your own affairs according to its words, its power will increase significantly. But unless you're deaf, you will definitely hear it speak one day. To be honest, not even the deaf can escape. There have been some who sewed upon their ears in an attempt to escape the thing. Oh, sewed up their own ears, but it's still useless in the end. On the flip side, if you don't pay any mind to however it curses or however it pours cold water over you, then it can't do anything to you. So the most effective way is the third method. Surround yourself with happy thoughts and ignore it completely. Let it speak or not speak, but forget everything it says. Make yourself stronger and continue down your path according to your own will, and not the tragedy it predicted for you. This way, if it can't draw any despair from you, it will most likely sulk away on its own eventually. Of course, it could very well just be lying low, waiting for its next chance to ambush. Although the third method was the most effective, it was really difficult to accomplish. After all, who in the world could truly build a heart of stone and feel not a single ripple? The more that the Windmaster listened, the deeper his frown grew. Then what about the second time? Did you take care of it the same way the second time? The second time might not be a useful reference for anyone. After all, it was a unique situation. How was it unique? The one it attached itself was to me. Oh! Okay, good. One more chapter. Okay, good. I was like, no, cliffhanger. Venerable of empty words, mourning at the feast too. It was many years ago that Xie Lian himself encountered a venerable of empty words. That time he had just finished constructing a small hut by his own handiwork. He was just standing there admiring in his new abode when suddenly a tiny voice came out of one of the corners. This dwelling of yours will collapse in 2 months. So what did you do? Nothing. I said 2 months. If it's still standing in 7 days, it'll be a real miracle. Hua Cheng's lips curved slightly, but immediately that smile faded away. That venerable of empty words hid in the shadows, waiting to suck Xie Lian's fear, frustration, insecurity, and other such negative emotions. However, it sucked nothing but empty air. Even when Xie Lian had finished cleaning up and fell asleep in his new house, it still hadn't managed to suck anything. Although Xie Lian never saw its form, he could still sense that it was probably quite angry. Not a few days later, lightning struck down, and the entire hut was scorched. The venerable of empty words was pleased. It was probably thinking that scorched was no different than collapse, so its curse was technically fulfilled. Xie Lian must be afraid now. Yet that didn't happen. It still didn't manage to suck anything that could fill its stomach. Disgruntled, it thus followed after Xie Lian, waiting for the next joyous occasion to come. Who knew that this wait turned into over half a year? In half a year! Xie Lian had not had one joyous occasion. If this was anyone else, they would have given up already. However, creatures known as the Venerable of Empty Words had a unique trait, and that was obstinance. If they could spot prey, then they would be relentless in their pursuit, so it starved pathetically for half a year, and finally, an opportunity came to pass. One day, Xie Lian managed to collect a large bundle of junk and made a small fortune. The Venerable of Empty Words was overjoyed. Having waited this long, it immediately used all the tricks it had. Stream after stream of curses erupted. After Xie Lian struck it rich, he would waste his fortune on drinks and gambling, and then would fall sick with long strings of debt, and so on. Xie Lian counted his money and listened with indulgent amusement. After, he still only tidied up and went to bed, and the Venerable of Empty Words still sucked nothing. That night, Xie Lian's pile of junk caught on fire. After the fire was put out, ashen-faced, Xie Lian sighed. He said to the Venerable of Empty Words, "What a shame it's all burnt. Not a single scrap left. I hadn't even gotten to experience that lifetime of riches, or any of those drunken dreams you spoke of. I think the things you say are quite interesting, so how about you tell me some more?" This happened several times. Towards the end, Xie Lian would actually ask it before it even spoke, "Do you have anything to say? Do you want it to say anything?" Until that Venerable of Empty Words couldn't take it anymore and fled. To the Venerable of Empty Words, a god of misfortune like Xie Lian was extremely unfavorable. Either he'd have no happy occasions and he'd wait for nothing, or he'd already gotten used to all the bad luck and suffered neither fear nor anxiety. His luck was so bad, it was outside the imagination of the Venerable of Empty Words, so Xie Lian felt nothing of its curses, and even treated them like well wishes or daydreams. In any case, Xie Lian never ran into any Venerable of Empty Words again. He suspected that maybe after having fled, that Venerable of Empty Words went back to its people and rudely publicized how awful he was. Listening up to this point, the Windmaster didn't manage to hold it in and snorted a laugh. "Is it very funny?" Hua Cheng said quietly. The Windmaster knew it was inappropriate too and instantly schooled his expression. He apologized and said, "I'm sorry, Your Highness." "Oh, don't worry, I think it's pretty amusing too." He concluded, "The Venerable of Empty Words suck power from fear in people's hearts. With this power, it manipulates its predictions to come true and then makes a new prediction. The cycle continues until the person is thoroughly broken and their heart is destroyed. So the more unsteady the heart, the worse it gets. The more one has, the more one fears loss." Did my Lord Windmaster receive a prayer of this sort from a worshipper who is asking you to help? You're the god of wind. Something like this isn't under your jurisdiction. If you receive this prayer, you can very well pass on to the next martial god. It's not a worshipper who ran into it. It was me. Oh. Now Xie Lian was even more bewildered. You ran into one yourself? Venerables of Empty Words don't usually dare mess with heavenly officials. Even if they messed with you as an esteemed heavenly official, there's nothing to be afraid of. If I had run into it after my ascension, then of course there would be nothing to worry about, but it's a long story. This was many hundred years ago, when the Windmaster and Watermaster were still mortals. They were born and raised in an affluent and prosperous merchant household. Qi Rong was the second son, and after he was born, the entire family rejoiced. They gave the second son the baby name Jean, and they widely distributed porridge and such fare to feed the hungry in order to build merits through acts of compassion. At the time, there was a fortune teller who ate the porridge and saw the babe wrapped in swaddling clothes. He asked for the birth details and said this: "Since I've taken a meal from your household, I will say this. This son of yours might have a good life, but it's hard to tell you the whole story. Just know, if you want to save him, he must be kept low profile. Don't raise him to be boisterous, flaunting kind. Don't give him the chance to shine. Remember to build fortune in muffled quiet. This will ensure he lives a life of peace. Be sure to never host any feasts for him, or it will bring something bad." Those were not pleasant words, and very much like something a Venerable of Empty Words would say. The Xi family was a merchant household, and all the qualities he described were especially valuable to them. The fortune teller was shooed away immediately, and his words were not taken seriously. A few days later, a feast was held in Xi Chong's honor. The lanterns shone and banners flew, drums roared and gongs sounded. At the feast, the guests were at the height of hollering their congratulations, singing songs of praise to the second young master of the Xi family wrapped in swaddling cloths. But then a sing-song voice suddenly rang out from the ground, "Wretched beginning, wretched end!" That voice really did come from the floor, but it overtook the voices of everyone present, and they all were dumbfounded with shock. The feast ended with apprehension thick in the air. That very night, the baby Xi Chong had become hot with fever, crying nonstop, even dry heaving at times. The heat refused to go down no matter what was done, and the entire family was terrified. The Xi family remembered that, and baby names are often nicknames given before a formal name is decided. Not long ago, that the fortune teller who spoke the strange words and was kicked out. They searched all over and invited him back. The fortune teller said, "I told you to keep a low profile, but you would..." "Oh no, you wouldn't listen!" Now the child has caught the eye of the Reverend. His entire life will be filled with misfortune. This bout of fever is nothing. It will go away on its own, but this is nothing more than a greeting gift. Of course, he was talking about a Venerable of Empty Words, but this wasn't a typical Venerable of Empty Words that could be chased away so easily. It was one that was extremely old in years, one that was the strongest in cultivation. How strong? Even without joyous occasions, it could still mourn. Thus, it was called the Reverend of Empty Words. This Reverend was the very embodiment of the phrase, "the shop that can close for 3 years, but eats for 3 years once it opens." Its eyes were sharp and malicious. The prey it clung to were never any less than characters whose lives were destined for greatness, wave makers and legends. Some managed to win against it, but they would have to devote their entire lives to the battle, providing it with significant portions of food as they struggled. Some were defeated thoroughly and became a source of its powers. Having hoarded power for close to 1,000 years, its foundation was deep and thick. After having rested for over 100 years, it was time to stretch its legs. When it opened its mouth to feed, it was eager to take a large bite. Coincidentally, the Windmaster had just been born and was exactly to its taste. Thus, he was reserved by the Reverend. Although the tiny baby couldn't understand its predictions even if he heard them, there would come a day when he could understand, and there would come a day when he would know fear. Once this fear was planted in the boy's childhood, it would burrow deep, unable to be uprooted. Fortunately, monsters like these didn't have much in the way of brains, and the way they thought was bizarre, quite abnormal. Thus, the fortune teller thought of a way to trick it. Have the Xie family send the Windmaster away and pretend he was given to another family. Then change the appearance of that son to that of a female baby before bringing him back. Have the family claim that the female babe was a kept daughter, and have the whole Xie family call the young master little lady and raise him as a girl. As long as the Reverend of Empty Words could not find the male baby it reserved, after time passed, it wouldn't be able to remember who it had picked. Thus, the Windmaster matured to 10 years of age in peace. Within those 10 years, the once wealthy merchant household had gradually declined. The parents of the two masters passed away. Internal conflicts raged in the family, fighting over inheritance. Xie Wudu was tired of it all. So the year he turned 16, he left home, bringing with him little Xingchong, who was younger by many years. The brothers depended on each other to survive. Xie Wudu was the first to enter the mountains to cultivate under a master, and settled his little brother in a town at the foot of the mountain. Every day he'd cultivate and train till late, not descending the mountains until deep in the night. There was nothing to eat in the mountains, and he could only eat at home. One evening, sparring with another, Xie Wudu lost track of time. The Windmaster waited for a long time, and still his brother hadn't come home. Worried that Xie Wudu would be hungry, he decided to deliver the food up the mountain. The Windmaster was still a child at the time and didn't know how to hike the mountain paths. The night was dark, and after having walked a long time with the food box, he suddenly needed to relieve himself. Anxiously, he pulled up his skirt on the side of the road. Just then a black shadow appeared from the far end of the mountain, asking, "Is it Shan up ahead?" Hearing someone call his baby name, Xi Qingsheng thought his brother had sent someone to come find him. He dropped his skirt, acknowledging the call. "It's me!" "Is it your birth, such year, such month, such day, such time?" "That's right. How'd you know? Who are you? How do you know my brother?" "Come over here and let me see your face properly." That was a tone of command. And at that time, the Windmaster noticed something was amiss. He hugged the food box and dashed away, and as he ran, he could hear the whirlwinds behind him laughing like crazy. The thing was chasing him and was close behind. "You're going to fall right now!" The Windmaster was horrified. When it said fall, he tripped and fell, breaking the food box. Rice spilled all over the ground. Just as the creature was about to pounce, Xie Wudu arrived. Seeing someone had come, the Reverend of Empty Words disappeared out of sight. Xie Wudu hugged his little brother, whose face was covered in blood and rice from the fall, and both of them were shocked and terrified. It still found him. After having hidden for so many years, the Reverend of Empty Words had finally found its first taste of sweetness, and from then on it would appear regularly. Each time more mysterious than the last. The cultivation of that creature was too strong, and the Xie family fortune was already depleted. And the cultivators of Xie Wudu managed to hire, they could do nothing about it. He hadn't the power to throw out a million merits to have his voice heard directly by the heavens, although the creature never demanded Xi Qingshan's life. Still, the two brothers knew it was only biding its time, waiting to butcher only when the prey was fattened. Right now, it was only slapping his face gently, reminding him to fear it. But there would be one day when the slap would hurt. This was like a hunter who wouldn't kill his prey with just one arrow. It had to brush many against it, thoroughly terrifying the target and feeding off its terror. This was nothing more than death by 1,000 cuts. The torture described by the original text Ling Qi, its torture technique that appeared in the early 10th century, where the executioner would slice the flesh of the condemned with a small knife bit by bit until the person was dead. Fortunately, a turning point came. After many years of aggressive training, well, we're going to talk about this, Xie Wudu ascended. The moment he ascended, he immediately brought the Windmaster to the middle court, aggressively throwing rare treasures and divine riches all over him. A few years later, the Windmaster also successfully ascended. The Reverend of Empty Words thus quieted and disappeared. The Windmaster naturally believed it, finally gave up and backed off, knowing it had been beaten, yet it seemed he was too optimistic. A few days ago, he invited a bunch of friends to drink. and he was inebriated, and he suddenly heard a malicious voice in his ear. "You will never be able to see your brother again." That voice was exceedingly familiar. Between his 10th year and before his ascension, he would hear that voice at least once or twice every year. His fear of it had sunk deeply into his bones. And this was like an explosive had detonated next to his ear. The Windmaster sobered up immediately. He rushed to Pei Ming's domain in terror, only relaxing when he saw Shi Wudu well and was hanging out with Ling Wen and Pei Ming. Afterward, he wondered if the voice was simply his own delusion. After all, the creature had planted a deep shadow in his heart since he was young. However, after some thought, he was still worried. So he dragged Ming Yi over to Xie Lian to ask for his assistance. He hadn't expected to bump into Hua Cheng at the Puchi Shrine. Truly, the road is narrow for enemies. After hearing the story, Xie Lian commented, "So the one Lord Windmaster met and the one I met were on completely different levels. San Long, have you ever seen that Reverend of Empty Words before?" Hua Cheng was toying with a pair of chopsticks in his hand and replied, "Oh, I've never seen it personally, but I know someone who has." Oh, he was curious to know who this someone who knows was, but he didn't ask after it. He only said, "Just how strong is its cultivation? Is it really that powerful?" "Very strong. It's not like a regular little minion. It's definitely hard to deal with." Although he said hard to deal with, still his expression remained neutral, like he was only saying it out of courtesy. However, to receive such a comment from Hua Cheng, it was definitely something. "Lord Windmaster, this problem doesn't seem like a trifling matter. Why not tell Lord Watermaster?" No. You have to know, my brother is about to undergo another heavenly calamity. If he should go fight the Reverend of Empty Words during this time, what if he loses focus? I have to keep this a secret, so no one must know. I didn't tell a single official who has a good relationship with my brother. A heavenly official didn't just go through a heavenly calamity once. The more calamities passed, the greater their divine state, and the more unshakable their status, the stronger their spiritual powers. Shi Wudu was a heavenly official who had passed 2 calamities already, and Xie Lian had heard in the leisurely chats and the spiritual communication array that he was waiting for the 3rd one now. It definitely wouldn't be favorable should he lose focus. After all, if one failed to pass a calamity, their divinity would be lost. Oh my gosh! Okay. Well, I holy shit. You know what? This was not what I expected walking into these chapters. Well, this set of chapters was crazy. In like the most domestic way possible. Like, okay, we're gonna introduce this venerable of empty words. We're gonna introduce that to you all. Connected to the Windmaster, connected to Xie Lian. Explain a lot more of the motivation with the Watermaster and all of that. And then we're just gonna also have Hua Cheng be there and just be kind of moody that everybody's in the way of him and Xie Lian. Hua Cheng's like, I can't get 3 seconds with my deity Gege, can I? No, not at all. So this looks kind of weird, but I actually got a standing desk from work, and I actually got some new stuff at work, so I like brought the standing desk home. So now I can stand up and talk about Whiteboard Kun. I don't know if that will work, so we're just gonna test it out with this video and see how it looks. I don't know if I'm gonna like stand for reactions or what I'll do if I feel like I have more movement when I'm like standing up versus sitting down all the time, so we'll see. But man, so these chapters, we're almost to the end. We've got a little bit left, we do get some pictures in this book in these chapters I did want to show you all. Adorable pictures, adorable. The first one is this really cute one of Ming and Ruyi. They look awesome. It almost looks like the initials of San Long, right? It looks like an S and then looks like an L for long. So I don't know. I have a theory about Ruyi. I don't know if it's correct or not, but I have a theory. My theory is that I wonder if Ruyi was a gift that San Long technically gave Xie Lian without Xie Lian realizing that he was given it. I don't know if that's the case. I don't know if that's what's happened, but that's my theory. I have a theory that Rui is something connected to San Long, and maybe Xie Lian doesn't realize it, because as most things with Xie Lian, he doesn't realize it's a gift from San Long or from Hua Cheng. So, like you do, right? But I love that. Like, Yiming looks like Sauron from Lord of the Rings. It's great. And then the other picture is amazing. It is amazing for several reasons. It is this picture of the Windmaster and Xie Lian and Hua Cheng. It's amazing for a number of reasons. One reason it's amazing is because the Windmaster looks glorious in his guy form. Ming Yi has passed out and is a corpse at the table, is not much use to anyone right now. And I also love Xie Lian's hair is up. Xie Lian's hair is up in a little bun, which if you go to the very front of the book, in the little thing that we saw, there's Xie Lian with his hair up in a little bun, and San Long's in the robes that he's in at the very end. And they're out there, like, washing the clothes. Qi Rong's probably just sitting off screen. Oh my god, it's amazing. But also, want to make note, Hua Cheng is just not happy to be here. He was like, I just want my Gege and I to be able to settle in peace. Why can't we have nice things? So, that's where we are. And my dog is like, why don't you throw things? So, okay, we've got a lot to talk about in this, and so I wanted to bring Whiteboard Coon out here. I'm probably going to set Whiteboard Coon back just a wee smidgen so I can talk with it here. There, that looks a little better. We've got a lot to talk about these chapters. Oh my god, and it feels weird talking to you all standing up. I feel like I can crack my back. It feels strange. I feel very much in teacher mode right now. I have a whiteboard. I'm dressed like I would be teaching at school, so this is fun. This is something, if this looks fine and it goes well, I might do this in the future. Who knows? But yeah, so we have a lot to go over with Yiming versus Rui. I want to say first and foremost, before I even write anything on the board here, it is not escaping me. A lot of stuff, my mind, it just goes, whew. I'm like Xie Lian. There's a lot of sexual innuendos in this series that just go, whew, they escape me. And you all point them out in the comments, and I'm like, oh my god, I missed that. Did not miss this time that Xie Lian stroking Yiming calmed him down. I'm like, really? Are we serious? Are we serious? Okay. All right. And so, yeah, like Xie Lian has to stroke Yiming to calm down, and then Hua Cheng pops up. We're gonna write Hua Cheng up here, and hopefully this shows up really good here. But we're gonna write Hua Cheng up here, because I don't know if y'all, hopefully that red shows up all right. We're gonna write Hua Cheng up here, kind of in the corner, because I do feel bad for Hua Cheng. He had this giant plan in mind that he'd show up on the doorstep, be right as rain, and then all these things happen, and he's like, are you freaking kidding me? I can't have an ounce of time with Xie Lian. Really? But that's where we're at. So Hua Cheng, he looks like San Long, again, in this case, and he has Yiming with him, which is curious. I'm wondering, has he always had Yiming with him the entire time? Or he didn't have Yiming back with him during Banyu that we saw. So I feel like Yiming being on Hua Cheng's form at this time means that he's being a little bit more hesitant, right? And I feel the reason for that is because he's found out that he's had a spy with him the whole time. Like, Hua Cheng might be a little bit more cautious than he was during Banyu, because he knows that there's a chance he could run into a heavenly official that might present some problems, and could present some problems to Xie Lian. So there we are. And my dog wants me, of course, to throw this as I'm talking to y'all. But yeah, so that's kind of where we are with that. And so then, of course, he sees him, and he's just come and he gives back the bamboo hat. Now, I think it's important to know that he went back and found Xie Lian didn't even know the bamboo hat was really gone. He didn't even care about it. And that kind of speaks to Xie Lian not really caring about possessions or material items. He was just like, oh, I lost my hat. Like, he was looking for it as soon as they got on the shore, but having not found it, he was able to let go and not worry about it at all. So he brings back the bamboo hat, which does bring to mind the fact that he went and looked for it, that he went and retraced steps and looked for it. To me, that kind of signaled the idea that has he been doing this? That's the question. Has he been doing this the whole time? Has he been the last 800 years kind of retracing Xie Lian's footsteps and following him along from the shadows and just helping him out when he needed to? But then that begs the question, why did he now decide to go to Xie Lian and say something? We don't know. Why did he just decide to show up now? Again, there's little questions and things that we, the audience, aren't sure about that I'm sure are going to get answered as we go. But he went back and found the bamboo hat. I'm going to put, in this case, Xie Lian over here. And Xie Lian having forgotten the hat. And make note of that. So yeah, so I love any time that we have Xie Lian and Hua Cheng together in this story. I love when they're there. So he sees Guzi. Guzi, the little kid that is with Qi Rong, who's in the dad's body, is scared of him. And Xie Lian makes this comment and says, oh, don't worry, Gege is a good person. But Hua Cheng says, no, I'm a very bad person. That part there was like, So Xie Lian, he thinks that Hua Cheng is good. He doesn't sense anything wrong with Hua Cheng, but Hua Cheng does not defend himself. He said, I am the most sincere person you'll ever meet. He describes himself as a very bad person. Hua Cheng and Xie Lian just need to go to therapy together. They both have insecurities about themselves that I'm like, yeah, I know the idea is you two will complete one another. I get that, but Hua Cheng thinking he's like, I'm a very bad person. I'm like, ugh. So that does beg the question of why Hua Cheng would think that. I mean, he's a supreme ghost. He's probably done bad things in the past. So what does that mean, right? So there's a question there of why does he think he's a very bad person? He's a supreme ghost. He didn't just get there by being nice and shaking ghosts' hands. He's done things in the past that I'm sure but it doesn't seem like he's not proud of them. He seems very confident about them. So that begs the question of how does he think Xie Lian will react? So interesting. But as he says that, he flicks the silver butterfly and watches as Guzi's kind of entranced by it, right? So Guzi is like, it almost seems like he's trying to win Guzi's favor over and like earn his trust and be like, no, I'm a bad person, but here's the silver butterfly. And the kid is like kind of entranced by it. Here's the thing. He doesn't like Long Ying at all. And I don't know why, other than the fact that it's this bandaged kid but the thing about it is when it was just Long Ying in Paradise Manor the first time, I could get why Hua Cheng didn't like him because it was like a threat. He was stealing Xie Lian's attention from him, right? You would think that was the case. But now there's another kid. I like that he comes up to Xie Lian and he's like, oh, you found another child, huh? Just your wayward home of orphans, huh? We're making Poochie Shrine into an orphanage. But what's interesting is that you would think he'd be very jealous of Guzi, but he's not. He tries to win Guzi's affection. He does not like Long Ying, and I don't know why. He does not like Long Ying. And I don't know if it's because he knows that he's met the Heavenly Emperor. If Hua Cheng is aware that he's met the Heavenly Emperor, something's tied to that. I don't know. If he has a spy in the Heavenly Realm, then he knows he's encountered the Heavenly Emperor, Junwu, so does it have something to do with that? But he didn't like him from the start, so I figured he was just jealous, but there might be something more to it that we, the audience, don't know about. So there's a big question mark there. He doesn't like Long Ying. He's pretty cold around him. They're sharp, and Long Ying kind of shrinks back, but Xie Lian doesn't seem to notice. So we're going to put a pin in that. Why does he not like Long Ying? It seems like that's going to come up later in this series at some point. But Qi Rong! Oh, Qi Rong. I love that Qi Rong he just absolutely is the worst. He's such garbage in these chapters because he's just sitting there in that dad's body. He won't come out and he refuses to. And he's just, you would think he'd be amazed that Hua Cheng is there. and that him and Xie Lian are working together, but I guess he's accepted that, and he's just like, whatever, what the fudge. And he's a bold sir for cursing at Hua Cheng, and I feel like the only reason he curses at Hua Cheng is because he knows Xie Lian's okay with it. That Xie Lian was like, oh, don't hurt him, Hua Cheng. I feel like that's the only way he gets away with it. But he calls him, he's like, the two of you, broken pot matching a rotten cover, hearts of snakes and scorpions. Which he has Rui, which is described as a snake. So again, when they described Rui as a snake, I was like, was it given by Hua Cheng? Because there seems to be there's like a connection to snakes with Hua Cheng and Xie Lian. Like, right, we had the snakes in Banyu, we have Rui, Qi Rong calls them snakes. So that's all rather curious. But he's like, he's not gonna get out of this body until he dies. And Xie Lian's like, I don't know what to do. We can't kill him because it's the dad's body. If we're too hard on him, it'll kill the dad's body and this kid will be orphaned. So what do we do? I don't know how we're going to get him out, right? And so Xie Lian calls Rui back and they're sitting there and he's gone, Xie Lian, the love of all seasons stew. I absolutely love it. Love of all seasons stew. I love it because it's so perfect, because Hua Cheng loves Xie Lian all seasons, all year round. And it's because their love is eternal. It never ends. And because Xie Lian's thrown everything from all seasons into a pot. And God, it's just like, the thing is Hua Cheng and Qi Rong, they can withstand Xie Lian's cooking because they're used to ghost realm cooking, which is like Spirited Away on crack. It's like awful. But then you have the Windmaster and the Earthmaster who are used to such delicacies that they're like, no. And oh God, that scene where Xie Lian, I feel bad for him because Xie Lian's just like, don't you guys like it? And Hua Cheng eats the whole thing. He's like, I wonder if the love that Hua Cheng has in his heart allows him to eat Xie Lian's cooking all the more. I wonder if that's the case. I wonder if it helps him eat Xie Lian's cooking, if that's part of it, right? But Rui versus Yiming for Xie Lian's affections. That's another thing that made me think that they were both gifts from Hua Cheng. That Hua Cheng created Yiming, he created Rui, and they both love Xie Lian as much as Hua Cheng loves Xie Lian. And because they say Feng Shen just sits in the corner somberly, which, if we talk about Feng Shen, I'm going to put Feng Shen up here. Feng Shen was a gift from Jun Wu. It was a gift from Jun Wu. It was one of his swords that Xie Lian took. And it's just sitting in the corner, objectively just staring like, it's fine. I'm good either way. But then you have Rui and Yiming, and they're both head over heels for Xie Lian, which makes me wonder if they were gifts that were created or spiritual devices created or used by Hua Cheng that he gave Rui to Xie Lian, like to watch over him, to protect him, to help him. And Xie Lian's like, okay, I'll take this spiritual device. You seem friendly. Here, boy. And like takes him in like a puppy dog. I don't know. They both just, Yiming and Rui seem so similar that I'm like, they both seem like they're from Hua Cheng to help Xie Lian. I don't know. They're like the Flotsam and Jetsam to Hua Cheng's Ursula. I don't know. I don't know if anything's going to come of that. I'm curious when we finally get to find stuff out about Rui and Yiming's origins, because it's not been mentioned at all yet, what that's going to be. We've got 4 more volumes to find out, so I'm sure it's going to come up in the wash at some point. But yeah, them just cooking food and Yiming like showing off how good he is, and Xie Lian being like, wow, you're better than Rui. That's really helpful. And Rui's just like up against the wall, and then Feng Shen remained unmoved. And so I like the Hua Cheng the whole time is just watching Xie Lian. He's just enamored. He just is just, Xie Lian has captivated him, and he's just like, he's waited 800 years to be around his deity and just to sit there and stare at him. I'm like, you're ruining boyfriends for everyone, Hua Cheng. You're just ruining them. And he's like, oh, I'll just stick around for a couple days. I know, if that's okay. It's like, of course. Now, why Hua Cheng was to stick around for a couple days? My theory was to help him get Qi Rong out of the body and to see what he was going to do, but we'll see. The whole thing with the Windmaster and Earthmaster showing up seems to be like a total surprise to Hua Cheng and to the Wind and Earthmaster. So it's just like fate, right? God of misfortune at work, right? And so Xie Lian's like, well, it's going to be a little cramped with these kids here. And Hua Cheng's like, it's fine. I am sad we didn't have any like late night conversations with Xie Lian and Hua Cheng, but the kids were there, so maybe that's why. I don't know. They just keep Qi Rong tied up out back by the laundry. It's hilarious. I love Qi Rong calling him a black-hearted snow lotus. That is absolutely hilarious. And so Hua Cheng's just like, oh, it's fine. Never mind him. And then he tells Hua Cheng not to eat anything from the pot and then goes to feed it to Qi Rong first. And then they look inside the shrine and Hua Cheng didn't listen and he's poured himself a ladle and is just eating it like it was nothing. And Qi Rong realizes, oh, as expected of a supreme, if you come out, you won't have to eat. But he suffers through it. Qi Rong is, if anything, horrifically stubborn and just kind of the worst because he's just like, I don't know what we were comparing him to earlier, but he's like a cockroach. He just doesn't go anywhere. He keeps coming back and you're like, you can't get rid of him, right? He just won't leave the dad's body and it's annoying. And so Hua Cheng is just like, oh, it's fine. So we get to talk about the six samsara realms, the Buddhist beliefs in the 6 realms of existence that people are born from: heaven, ajara, human, animal, hungry, ghost, and hell. I like there's a distinction between a hungry, ghost, and hell, right? And Xie Lian, I love that he asks Hua Cheng how it is, and Hua Cheng's like, oh, it's not bad. It's a little thick. You might water it down. And Qi Rong's dying outside. Like, Hua Cheng, I feel, again, as if love conquers all. He's so nice. He doesn't want to admit if Xie Lian's, and maybe he loves Xie Lian's cooking so much that it makes it better, right? Yeah, hair in my mouth. So yeah, then we go to chapter 102. I'm so glad I read these 4 chapters together. Discord, mwah. I'm so glad y'all suggested I read them together because if I split them up, if I had stopped after chapter 102, I would have been so mad because chapter 101 and 102 are literally just talking about them making the soup, which is fine, but I liked the ending of chapter 104 was a much better place to stop. And then we got all the backstory with the Windmaster and the Watermaster, which is going to go all on here when we get to it. So that's fun. But yeah, so Xie Lian, I like that he was really confident at first and then his confidence just completely sinks as Qi Rong admits that the food is terrible and he's like, I really thought I was doing well. And so then all these beautiful girls start coming around and Qi Rong knows why they're coming around. They're not coming around because of Xie Lian. We established back, I don't know if it was in the last volume, I think it was in the last volume we established that Hua Cheng is attracting, he has the exact opposite thing of Xie Lian. He's attracting the young girls, right? He's attracting the young girls. And it's funny, much like in Modao Zushi, I was talking about it with another commenter about the difference between Wei Wuxian and Xie Lian. But much like Modao Zushi, you know, all these girls would show up around Wei Wuxian and he'd be like, and the commenter was saying that Wei Wuxian just kind of used the women for certain things. Not use them in a bad way, like sexually or anything, but he would just have them around to help him with stuff, and then he wouldn't pay them no mind. That's kind of the same way here. Hua Cheng attracts the girls to come bring good food to the shrine for the kids and for Xie Lian, but then he wants nothing to do with them. And Qi Rong, you know, is kind of just saying like popular. He's like, Xie Lian's not popular. He's trying to Hua Cheng is trying to like praise Xie Lian and be like, oh, look at these beautiful women you're attracting to your shrine. And Qi Rong is like calling him out, being like, it's not Xie Lian that's attracting them, it's you. Like, quit spouting off stuff. I just love he calls Hua Cheng just like a mother trucker. Like, he's just out of nowhere. It's amazing. He's like, oh, you just think you can attract some country chicks. Country chicks. It's great. But yeah. So then Qi Rong says, well, Eve, he's like, that's only because you look really handsome in this form. He's like, if you didn't, it's almost like Qi Rong is trying to insult Hua Cheng's form, which is Hua Cheng's source of insecurity. He's like, he's almost trying to insult him, being like, well, if you didn't look like you did in this form, these girls wouldn't come see you. And Xie Lian, whether he realizes it or not, he really praises Hua Cheng, thinking to himself, he's like, even if Hua Cheng dressed like a beggar, he believed he would collect a mountain of gold. But he said nothing and did the chores leisurely. So I love that. I love that whether Xie Lian realizes it or not, he is praising Hua Cheng and pointing out how handsome and wonderful he is. And it's like, Xie Lian, you're falling in love and you don't even realize it. It's like, I also love when he starts making the stew again and Hua Cheng's like, what is this nonsense? I don't know how long it's going to take the Donghua to get to this season. It's going to be amazing when they do and we see this moment. It is going to be, I thought Volume 2's contents I was excited to see animated. No. This whole season, all of this, it'll take forever if they even do it, but it would be amazing to see this animated, to see Qi Rong just absolutely losing his mind. I'm ready for it. I'm ready to see Qi Rong in season 2 of the Donghua. I'm ready to see how he is animated and how his voice sounds. I have all these expectations. I'm ready to see it. But he's like, you gave that effing thing a name, and it's the love for all seasons too. So I like that Hua Cheng watches Long Ying taking Guzi out to play and says, let me do the dishes. Again, Hua Cheng is really suspicious of Long Ying, and I don't know why. I don't want to know why, but I'm definitely pinning that to know, like Guzi, he doesn't seem to care because he feels like Guzi, he knows, is just a common kid that's dad has been inhabited by Xie Lian's cousin, and he's like, well, there's nothing we can do about that. This kid didn't ask to be here. But he has something against Long Ying that I don't know what is, and there's some reason he's really hesitant around him, and so I'm very curious. I don't know what the deal is. I'm so fascinated, right? What if Long Ying, I say these theories, but then I think about it and I'm like, no, that's not possible. I was going to say, what if Long Ying was like Bai Wusheng reincarnated, right? What if that was the case? He was Bai Wusheng reincarnated and he had like the human face disease like with him, like the lingering effects of it. Or what if he was the son that had the human face disease curse pushed upon him? What if he was like the reincarnated, version of that? I don't know. What if he's Long Ying reincarnated? The actual Long Ying. I don't know. There's such mystery with Long Ying that I don't know. But Hua Cheng is very suspicious of him for reasons that he's not telling us, the audience. So there we go. And then, as soon as they said two beauties came to the shrine, I was like, well, the only two beauties that would be more beautiful than anything would be the Windmaster and the Earthmaster. And there we go. The chapters, I said in the last reaction that the Windmaster may be one of my favorite characters. They are. For sure. I love the Windmaster. And I'm loving them more and more because MXTX is giving them more things to do and more story. And so I'm like, okay. But yeah, so they come to the shrine. And I love that Qi Rong is just like, my favorite part of this whole exchange is that Qi Rong is so mad that they instantly recognized Hua Cheng with one look, but they didn't recognize him at all. They just thought he was a regular spirit, like an evil spirit. And he was like, I'm the touring Green Lantern. And they were like, who? It's great. It's wonderful. And my dog is like, please throw this toy. So yeah. So I also love that Ming Yi, that the Earthmaster, gets so offended by, so the Ming Yi is like so like indifferent and impartial and like rarely makes a move, but the moment that Qi Rong starts cursing them out, Ming Yi's like, all right, I've had enough. And instantly goes and starts kicking him, and Xie Lian's someone like, please don't kill him, that won't be good. But they both show up in female form. And they're like, this green young master. They call Qi Rong the green young master because he's so green from eating all the food. He's like, is His Highness the Crown Prince inside? And I love that the moment they say His Highness the Crown Prince, Qi Rong knows instantly who he is. He's like, oh, you're one of the heavenly officials. I don't want to talk to you anymore. Like, he's just done. He's like, don't want to talk. Don't want you. Oh, you're addressing my cousin by his royal name? No. I don't want to talk about it, you shitty officials from the upper heavens. I love it. And that's when Ming Yi smacks and Windmaster's like, please don't use violence. So yeah, So, and I like that Xie Lian's like, he's a person, don't hit him. And it's kind of like a double meaning in that one, he's like, oh no, he's my cousin, don't hit him. He's a person too, just like we are, or like we were. But there's also the double meaning of he's actually inhabiting a body, so maybe not kill him too. But then they see Hua Cheng. That exchange, I want to see it so badly, where Hua Cheng's smiling, showing his teeth. Him smiling, showing his teeth is like an animal baring its fangs, like, get out, scram, right? And then Ming Yi's like, oh, hell no. And Windmaster's like, crimson rain, sought flower. And then that's when Qi Rong gets mad. He's like, nobody noticed it was me. You recognized me when beating me, but knew him with just one look. It's great. It's absolutely wonderful. So, and then I love that the only reason Hua Cheng does not go all out in this moment is because Xie Lian is there. And the thing about it is, let me find my marker. The thing about it is that Hua Cheng, he is very concerned with how Xie Lian views him. He says to Xie Lian, he's like, it's almost like he's admitting, he's like, no, I'm a bad person. Like, don't say I'm good. I'm not gonna lie to you, Gege. I'm gonna tell you I'm bad. But he doesn't want Xie Lian to think less of him, right? He loves Xie Lian so much, he doesn't want him to think less of him. And he knows that Xie Lian doesn't, but he doesn't want to give him that opportunity. So he keeps himself very reserved. But when he says leave and never return, it's even more than the scram for the ghost, because I feel like the ghost would listen to him, right? But him telling him to scram, it's like, oh my god. And then Xie Lian's like, what do we do? Because Ming Yi and him are about to fight. Should we do something? And I'm actually amazed. There was a part of me that thought the Windmaster came to see Xie Lian to out the Crimson Rain Sought Flower. But they didn't. And before, I was wondering if the Windmaster was the spy working with Xie Lian, or working with the Crimson Rain Sought Flower for Xie Lian. I don't think that's the case anymore. I think these chapters have proven that the Windmaster, who I'm going to put over here, I think these chapters have proven that the Windmaster, we're going to put them, ooh, that marker is not great, y'all. I think if these chapters have proven anything, it is that the Windmaster is not with Hua Cheng. I honestly think the Windmaster is pretty innocent in all of this. I don't think they're a traitor. I don't think they're working with Hua Cheng. I don't think they're working with Junwu. I think the Windmaster is pretty innocent in all this, because I do believe they didn't know Hua Cheng would be there. Now, Ming Yi, we know, has been a spy for Junwu against Hua Cheng, and Hua Cheng's not very happy about it. So, but the Windmaster, I feel like, is pretty innocent, right? Which maybe that's part of their bad luck. Part of their bad luck. Like when their brother Shi Wudu said, don't associate yourselves with any unfavorable characters, I feel that that is tied to their friendship with Ming Yi, with Xie Lian, and Hua Cheng. Because, yeah, now that we know that the Windmaster has this bad luck attached to them, it kind of makes more sense. They've been attached to these other characters who have bad luck as well. So it's like birds of a feather flock together, right? It's just that. And now it makes more sense why Shi Wudu is so concerned about his brother. I will admit, these chapters made me understand Shi Wudu's character a lot more, because I've been giving him a really hard time. We're gonna put Shi Wudu right here. We're gonna put him right there, and that marker sucks. So we're gonna put him right here. I do feel like I understand his character a lot more now. We're gonna talk about the whole male and female form thing when we get to it, but I do feel like his reasoning makes a lot more sense, right? I feel that's the case. So yeah. So Qi Rong saying, "Are you that slutty woman, the Windmaster?" Gold. When the Windmaster's like, "Your Highness, please wait." Like the door shuts, and the Windmaster just goes and beats the shit out of Qi Rong for saying, like, "You called me slutty? No one calls me slutty. Does this look like a slut to you?" I'm just like, yes, please. I want the Windmaster to make Qi Rong lip sync for his life. I want that to happen. So yeah, and then they come back into the shrine, and poor Xie Lian's like, this poor dad is gonna die because of all of them. He's not gonna make it. So they go to the table. I love Xie Lian describing the table in the shrine as being useful for all things. At the start of the chapter, it's so domestic. He's like, man, you can use it for a dining table, a kitchen aisle, a shrine, a family get-together, a meeting room. He's like, it's a multi-purpose table. Like, it felt very domestic. These chapters themselves feel so domestic. Like, it's all just taking place in this little shrine, in this little room, but there's so much happening. And I'm glad that Xie Lian was able to get the Windmaster under control, because he was like, if you use your fan in here, my shrine's destroyed. I haven't gotten any of the merchants' money yet to fix it, so we kind of need to avoid that. It's great. So yeah. So they get there with a bowl of... I like that Hua Cheng kind of just agrees to just let it go first. And he walks over to the stew, pours himself a giant bowl of the stew, and goes and sits back down. And Xie Lian's like, I made that. I feel for Xie Lian, where he's like, look at what I made. You guys want to try it? And Hua Cheng's just sitting there eating it like he knows what's going to happen. He's just like, go ahead and eat some. Go ahead. And it's just like, I feel like that was Hua Cheng getting his revenge. Is he was like, okay, we'll let you all have your fun, but you're gonna pay for it by eating Xie Lian's soup. It's great. And then they take 2 spoonfuls, and we go to chapter 103. So I love that his soup is so powerful against the heavenly officials that it not only makes Ming Yi completely collapse like they're dead, but it makes the Windmaster run around hallucinating, wondering where people are, what's happening, is this real life? And Xie Lian's like, well, that was just my soup, so guess it's not so good as I thought it was. I felt so bad for Xie Lian, especially when the Windmaster was like looking at Ming Yi saying that evil had overtaken his heart, and Xie Lian was like, my soup's evil. Again, what I love about this is that Xie Lian, he's the god of misfortune. He fits right into the ghost city. Fits right in with the ghosts. Like, they're all about it. Like, Xie Lian's soup would probably be a big hit over there. They probably wouldn't mind it at all. In comparison, right? I just love the visual of the Windmaster waving a broom around, thinking that it's Ming Yi. What the hell? So, and then Qi Rong just slamming his fists on the ground, laughing at it all, being like, you all are ridiculous. It's great. It's great. So Hua Cheng's like, I think it's fine. I think it's just their taste buds. It happens. It's like, you're going to find some people that are harsh critics and can't take it. It's great. So anyway, they finally ask the Windmaster, what is it that's the problem? And so he says, you've been cultivating for 800 years. You've probably seen plenty of ghosts and monsters. What about a venerable of empty words? So we have this idea that there is a venerable of empty words. And it's basically like a jinx monster is what it's called. It's a jinx ghost. Which, it doesn't sound bad at first. It sounds kind of like just hokey, like, oh, a jinx monster. That doesn't seem like much of a threat. And then the more the chapters go on, you're like, oh, this thing is really dangerous, actually, if it feeds off of your fear. It's a problem. So it's attached itself to the Windmaster. But not just any jinx monster, but the strongest one. The Reverend of empty words. To the point where Hua Cheng's like, yeah, that one's kind of a problem. I like that Hua Cheng's like, yeah, that one's kind of a bad thing. My theory is they're going to try to go after the Reverend and get rid of it and exorcise it, and they're going to bring Hua Cheng along. That's my theory. My theory is that Xie Lian's like, I want to help my friend the Windmaster out. I want to help them battle this venerable or this Reverend of empty words, but I can't do it alone. Kind of got some shackles on me. My spiritual power is kind of locked up. Hua Cheng, you are the strongest ghost. Could you help me exorcise it? And Hua Cheng's like, well, only if you kiss me again. But I have a feeling that Hua Cheng's going to get hired to go assist, which would be the weirdest thing because he's a ghost helping 2 officials. So realms are crossing. But I feel like that's where we're headed to. I don't know. And so I like the idea that the Windmaster creates the ambiance by like making like the room dim and the wind get cold, and Xie Lian's like, what are you doing? But instead he lights some candles, which is the image in the book. He lights a candle, and I like the idea that we see 2 snow white faces and 2 green faces. Yeah, 2 other pale greenish faces. Mm-hmm. And so Xie Lian talks about the 2 types. He's met 2 types of venerables of empty words before. Like, he's met lots of ghosts and monsters over the ages. I thought originally that what these spirits, that I thought before Xie Lian explained how to defeat them, I thought one way you could defeat them is by attaching it to something and wearing it out. That's where I thought Xie Lian was going to go with it. And so my theory was that he had attached the 2 venerable of empty words. He had attached one to Ruyi and one to Iming, and they eventually just gave up. But that would suspect that he'd known Iming before, and he hasn't. So that theory didn't pan out at all. But Xie Lian says that there's 2 ways that you can stop a venerable of empty words. Can you exterminate him? He's like, I bumped into 2 many years ago, and they've never shown themselves again. He's like, by my experience, it's not difficult to deal with them. But Xie Lian is much different than the Windmaster. And so he talks about the merchant and how he stopped it the first time with the venerable of empty words, the ghost that said the carriage would overturn and kill the girl. And Xie Lian's like, well, what we did was we just went back to the household, and he's like, I grabbed the monster and used a charm to seal its body and beat it to a bloody pulp. Like, he just says it like it's nothing. Xie Lian's like, I beat this thing up to a bloody pulp. And then after I did that, he says he ordered for a carriage taking to the valleys to run wildly astray. And then the rain snapped and the carriage crashed down and fulfilled the curse. And he's like, that's it. He's like, to deal with the jinx, or the venerable of empty words, there are 3 methods. And so the first method is don't let it open its mouth. So he basically he says there's 3 methods, right? The 3 methods, he's like, first, don't let it talk. Don't let it talk to you at all. He's like, it can help you guard for the moment, but it won't protect you for life, so you have to be constantly vigilant. And he's like, second, don't let the subject hear it. He's like, don't let that happen. He's like, to be honest, that part's not really good either. And then the third reason is to don't pay attention. He's like, if you don't pay attention, it will eventually, if you ignore it, it will eventually go away. It will get so bored with you that it will eventually leave. So Xie Lian explains that the first time he dealt with it, they just kind of confused it and made it seem like the jinx that it had promised had already happened, and the girl was kept safe. The second time, it attached itself to him. And so this is really sad. Chapter 104, when he describes it, he describes building the dwelling in 2 months. And he describes building the dwelling, and the venerable says, oh, well, your dwelling will collapse in 2 months. And the Windmaster's like, well, what'd you do? And he says, nothing. He's like, if it was standing in 7 days, it'd be a miracle. And it's like, Hua Cheng like smiles at the joke, but then he's like, It hits you, right? You kind of laugh at it. You're like, ha! You're like, yeah, that'd be funny. And then you realize that it's Xie Lian at his lowest point. And so this part is heartbreaking, right? Because Xie Lian, he says, he's like, I just, it went around saying that if any joyful occasion happened, it'd be ruined. And he's like, I just kind of ignored it. And so with the venerable of empty words, or view, as we'll call it, it followed Xie Lian for 6 months, and nothing joyous happened. Meaning that our cinnamon bun deity walked around for 6 months and nothing good happened in his life. That is heartbreaking. And I was like, MXTX, we know Xie Lian's had a bad past, and now you're just explaining to us that nothing good happened for 6 months to this man, to the point where a ghost that is known for jinxing people that has good things happen to them gave up on him. Like, he was so pitiful that a ghost that was trying to jinx people gave up on him. That's how bad it was. But he said finally, after half a year, this opportunity came to pass, that he had a large bundle and made a small fortune, and he made it burn up. And Xie Lian was like, oh, well, He's like, do you have anything else to say? He's like, you told me I'd have all these riches, but I never experienced those riches that you said I'd have, or any of those drunken dreams you promised. He's like, would you tell me some more? I really thought those were interesting. Which means that on top of nothing good happening for him for 6 months, when he finally did collect a scrap of good things and the ghost burnt it up, Xie Lian wasn't mad about it. He wasn't sad about it. He wasn't fearful about it. He has had such a horrible life with nothing good happening in it that he wanted the ghost to tell him all the stories that he knew weren't going to come true. He's like, your stories made me feel pretty good because I thought those good things could happen to me. You want to tell me some more? Because nothing good's happening. That's heartbreaking. That is awful. He's like, they were like well-wishes or daydreams. These empty words, these curses to Xie Lian were daydreams. I'm like, if I was Hua Cheng sitting there, I would be pissed, livid that the man that I loved so much had this so little esteem for himself and so little joy in his life, right? And so the Windmaster kind of like snorts a laugh, being like, that's really bad. And Hua Cheng's like, is it funny? Like, Hua Cheng is like super serious at this point. He's like, you can tell Hua Cheng's mad. He is mad because his man has been suffering all this time and doesn't think anything of value or good is going to happen in his life. Like, that's where he's at. And the Windmaster's like, oh, well, sorry. And Xie Lian's like, no, it's kind of funny, right? But yeah, no, it's not funny. It's like Xie Lian just doesn't feel like his life has any value in it. And Hua Cheng, you can tell, is just mad about it. And it is maddening. It's like, no. And so he says that, the more one has, the more one fears loss. So there is this big, I'm going to put Shiwudu, and I'm going to use green for up here because there's this big theme coming up. The idea that the more you have, the more you can lose. In Xie Lian's case, he wasn't afraid of losing anything because he had nothing. Why should he be afraid of losing something that he doesn't have? The Windmaster is a terrible person to be encountering the Venerable of Empty Words because he has everything. What's interesting is it almost seems a little counterintuitive because Shiwudu, here's my thing, Shiwudu, it now makes sense why he is the water merchant. That all makes so much more sense because they're from a merchant family. So he already kind of knew the family business. He's several years older than the Windmaster, so he was around the family business a lot more. But he's been collecting merits and riches to protect his brother. That's the thing that made me go, okay, I can get on Wudu's side a little bit more now because he's doing all this to protect his brother. He's been collecting all these riches as soon as he aggressively cultivated, right? He aggressively cultivated because he wanted to ascend to take his brother with him to get him out of the bad luck that was following him through the Reverend of Empty Words. So he's been trying to protect his brother all this time, right? Which brings about some curious questions about the whole female form thing, which we'll talk about here in a second. Brings about some questions with that. But the irony is that Xie Lian says, yeah, the more you have, the more you fear you're going to lose. So it's actually better if you don't have anything, because that will make the Reverend of Empty Words won't find you of any value to it because it knows it can't scare you. The irony is that Shiwudu has been doing all these things, gathering all these riches to protect his brother, but that very thing he's been doing to protect his brother is actually putting him in more danger. So it's like, it's the irony of all ironies, but how were they to know, right? How are they to know what to do? And so he says, did you receive a prayer about this? And he's like, no, this thing attached itself to me. And so we find out that the Windmaster, they were born to a wealthy family. There was this jester that came, this like fortune teller that came that, had this ominous sleeping beauty style warming. It's like Maleficent showing up being like, your son Windmaster will prick his finger on a spindle wheel. And it's like, no. And then the phrase, wretched beginning, wretched end. That seems rather foreshadowing, and I don't like it. I don't like it, MXTX. I don't like what you're doing, because that makes me think that the Windmaster is going to have a lot of trauma surrounding them and angst surrounding them. I don't want that. So I'm like, no, why would you do that, MXTX? You wouldn't do that to us, right? Right? So I'm like, no, I don't like that. I don't like where it's headed. I don't like where this is headed. And so he had like a fever as a baby, wretched beginning. And so I don't like the idea of a wretched end happening to our poor Windmaster. And so the fortune teller sounds like Tim the Enchanter from Monty Python and the Holy Grail. I warned you, but no, you didn't listen to me. He's like, now the child has caught the eye of the Reverend, and his entire life will be filled with misfortune. This favor will go away on its own. It's nothing more than a greeting gift. So the idea is that the Windmaster will have bad luck and misfortune plague him. Which, he's friends with Xie Lian, who's the god of misfortune, and Hua Cheng, who's a supreme ghost, and Ming Yi, who's had a pretty upsetting life too. So, you know, it's funny who the Windmaster associates themselves with, and that's probably what Xi Wudu was saying, being like, you know, don't associate yourself with people who are bad luck. And it's like, it just, I'm getting bad vibes, and I'm getting a little apprehensive of things to come with the Windmaster, and I'm a little scared. I'm not gonna lie. I'm a little scared. But the Reverend is the very embodiment of the shop closes for 3 years, but eats for 3 years once open. Eyes malicious. Like, it'll be gone for a while. It's the idea of when it rains, it pours. It's going to be gone for a while, but when it comes back, it's going to hit hard. And so then we have the story about how his brother was training in the mountains. But before we even get to that, it says that the family, their wealth started to go into decline. And so the fortune teller thought of a way to trick it, to have the family send him away and pretend he was given to another family, and change the appearance to a baby girl and bring them back, and have the family claim the baby was their daughter, and they would call them little lady and raise them as a girl. So, for 10 years of their life, they were raised as a girl. To me, it's a very interesting concept of gender and identity with the Windmaster, because the Windmaster likes their female form, which almost makes it seem like they were comfortable with them in their female form like that. And what's interesting is that they said they were doing that to protect the Windmaster from the Reverend itself. So I'm curious, one, why Wudu doesn't encourage the Windmaster to keep the female form, because wouldn't that be a way to trick the Reverend? Why wouldn't you want to do that? But also, it's like, maybe it reminds the Watermaster of why the Windmaster was raised as a girl, why that happened, and maybe, as Huckleberry is being annoying. Are you being annoying? You want me to throw this little dog toy? There you go. But maybe, maybe it not only reminds Wudu of the fact that I think it reminds him of the fact they had to hide his brother away from him. And his brother had to be treated differently because they were afraid of something bad happening to him. I think maybe it just brings back bad memories to Wudu, so he doesn't want to think about it. But in hindsight, it sucks is what it basically does, because one, the Windmaster seems comfortable in their female form, and maybe that's what they feel is most suited for them, but Wudu's like, no. But also, it could be a form of protection, but it's also a reminder of all the bad things that have happened to them as kids, and Wudu doesn't want to think about it. So there's a lot going on with this. And so when their parents pass away and the family's fighting over the inheritance, that's when Wudu just at 16 leaves and takes his brother with him. And I'm guessing around that time, it doesn't say so in the text, but I'm guessing around the time that Wudu, who was 16, took the Windmaster with them, he probably told him to stop being a girl, because it was a reminder of all the stuff that happened as they were kids. So I think that's more the reason why he's like that. I understand Wudu's a little bit more, his opinions about it a little more. I still think he should be okay if the Windmaster wants to be a lady. I think they should be totally fine. The Windmaster's a beautiful woman. I think they should be able to be whatever form they want to. Ling Wen as well, but I understand the reasoning behind it now. That makes much more sense. So yeah. So basically, Xi Wudu loses track of time, goes after his brother, and then falls. And that's when the Reverend of Empty Words appears and finds him and just slowly thinks it's going to just slowly eat away at his life and do all of that. So it's crazy, right? It's crazy how all this works out. And then he hears this malicious voice saying, you'll never be able to see your brother again. And so that's the recent thing. The recent thing is that the voice comes up to him and says, you'll never be able to see your brother again, like as they're drinking with his friends. And so he questions whether or not it really was the Reverend or whether it was him hallucinating because he's scared. Because he went to go, I love that he rushes over to find Xie Wudu. Like, the Windmaster rushes over to find him, and they're just like, the three of them are hanging out like bros at a frat meet. They're just got like sitting there with their like Miller Lights, and they're like, oh, hey, what's up, Windmaster? He's like, okay, are you okay? And he's like, yeah, what's up? But he doesn't want to tell his brother about it. He doesn't want to tell his brother and make him worried because his brother has another heavenly, the actual print book says tribulation. They don't call it a calamity. They say tribulation to face soon. That's what his thing is. He's got another tribulation to face soon. So funny that, right? That's what's going on with him. So Windmaster has heard the Reverend, and it has threatened to take his brother, or threaten that he won't see his brother again, which I don't know. He's with Hua Cheng and Xie Lian and them. There maybe stuff happens, he doesn't see his brother again. I don't know what that sounds kind of ominous, right? But he does not want to tell. He doesn't want to tell Wudu because he's about to face another heavenly tribulation. He's faced 2 so far. He's about to face his 3rd. And we know that Wudu is nearly rivaling Junwu. He was like right up there with Junwu with the lanterns, very closely. And again, I think that his whole point of becoming this strong, the Watermaster is so he can protect his brother. I think that's the whole reason for it. But it's kind of the most messed up thing. Like, he's doing all this and facing the tribulation to protect his brother, but his brother can't tell him about the Reverend because he wants to protect him. And so it's just this weird cycle, right? And so he's like, I don't know what to do. And so he says that, he's like, San Long, have you heard of the Reverend of Empty Words? And he's like, yeah, he's pretty strong. And so he says, no, you know my brother's about to undergo another heavenly calamity. To fight him during this time, he'd lose focus. I don't want to tell anybody who has a good relationship with my brother. I have to keep it a secret. And so, yeah, they're like, if you fail... Now, the text here says if one failed to pass a calamity, their divinity would be lost. In the text, it says that failing to pass tribulation meant, in turn, one's divine rank would plummet. So, Wudu has worked all this time to build up his rank. Shi Xingchong doesn't want to ruin that. He doesn't want his brother to fall. So he's like, I'll just take care of it on my own. Xie Lian has a lot of misfortune. He's probably come across one of these. So we'll just go find and talk to him and go from there. And that's where we're left at. So, oof. Oh, y'all. There's so much revealed in these chapters, right? Just understanding Wudu a little bit more. Knowing that it's crazy that the Windmaster has been so bubbly and kind and just so friendly, but yet they've had this weight on their shoulders their entire life. It's like, so yeah, it's a lot, right? It's a lot to deal with. And so it's just like, okay, well, what do we do with this? So that's interesting to me that now we're getting the Windmaster involved. And I like at this point the Windmaster Ming Yi. I'm very curious if Ming Yi sticks around, if them and Hua Cheng are in close proximity, if there's going to be talks about the whole spy thing come out, if that's going to be a thing. I think that Hua Cheng is going to get wrangled into at least helping them somewhat to find the Reverend. But I don't know. We've solved the fetus spirit. We still have Qi Rong to deal with. But Qi Rong's being really obstinate and stubborn, so maybe we'll just leave him tied up with Rui for another adventure till he just gets bored and decides to come out. Or something else. But yeah, I'm very curious because we have 1 chapter left in this book and then volume 4. So I'm definitely going to ask Discord what they think, if they think I should go ahead and read chapter 105 and start volume 4 in the next video. That's what I'm thinking is going to happen, but I'm going to ask them just to be sure. So, but yeah, I've talked for nearly an hour. If y'all prefer me sitting, say down in the comments. If you think standing up works better, I'll keep standing up. We'll just do it this way. We'll see. But yeah, these chapters, lots of stuff happening, y'all. And I'm pretty excited about it. So I don't know if I'll wait another week. I waited a week this time because it worked out and I got some comments, but I may not wait an entire week to read the next set of chapters because I have to go somewhere in early March and I need to maybe record a week ahead. So I might be doing that with this next set. We'll see. But in any case, I hope y'all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back very soon with chapters 105 and probably 106 of Heaven Official's Blessing. Bye.